it's, back when I did it, Pat, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have eBay.
Yeah.
I was selling stuff, little ads in the back of the newspaper, or going to stores, collectible stores, and trying to sell those items. Now it's so easy to make money and have it as a great side hustle or a full-time gig. People always ask, Aaron, how much could you make on a weekend? I've done it. I started with $250, even though I do have more money. I just wanted to test the water.
Mm-hmm.
And I do this every now and then to see if I still have it. I can then buy stuff for $200, $250, put it on eBay or flip it in other ways like Facebook Marketplace, and I can make $1,000.
Aaron Lapedis is known as the garage sale millionaire. You can find him on Facebook, eBay, and all over the web. His book is a bestseller on Amazon. Aaron is a master at spotting value and flipping it for profit, whether it's rare documents or real estate. But this episode isn't about money. It's about discovering what really matters in life. Please welcome Aaron to Bump in the Road. Aaron, welcome to Bump in the Road. If you would, tell us your story.
So, Pat, my story is a very interesting one because it truly changed my course of life. About a little over 16 years ago, we were going through a really bad recession, the country was, and I owned an art gallery. And 07 was my best year in business. And then in 08, everything changed for the economy. It was starting to tank. And I sold art, basically something that nobody needs. And, people slowed down their buying. I was in a very expensive place in Denver called Cherry Creek North. And sales were horrific. My other company was specking homes. And I had 2 big homes that nobody was buying. And then it all culminated in December when my gallery, I was thinking I may have to close my gallery. And the real estate, I had these homes that are paying, it was costing about $20,000 a month just to keep the mortgage payments going and the upkeep and finishing and everything like that. And then my wife was 7 months pregnant. She was having a lot of troubles with the pregnancy. And I had my book. At the time, it was not called The Garage Sale Millionaire. It was called Collectibles 101 that I was trying to pitch to literary agents and trying to get picked up. And I had a very ill father. And so this was all crashing down on me in December, where I was going to have to make hard decisions. But before I could make any hard decisions about business, my wife had to have emergency gallbladder surgery because our unborn baby was not growing and at the time could die. And also with that, my wife was in stress too. So she was having basically a life-saving operation because it could go the other way. And so my wife and my unborn son, life was in peril. My gallery was doing horrible. And then the bank that had the note on my 2 spec homes called in their note on 2 loans that were being paid on time. So in the span of 30 days, I was deciding whether I was going to close my gallery. I went from a gallery that was probably worth $2 million to be worth $4 million in debt and having no way of paying back the bank. My book, which is very minimalistic at the time, I was getting horrible letters from literary agents telling me what they thought about my book. My father at this point was touch and go whether how long much more he was going to live. And then when all this happened, my wife and I were basically had no money. So I had to cancel everything that was important to us. And one of the things I had to cancel was our life insurance policy, because I did not have the extra $100 a month to pay on it. And so we're going through December, and then January 5th of 2009, I had a massive heart attack and almost died. And that was the turning point in my life. The doctors said if this heart attack happened 2 months later, I would have died. It's called the widowmaker. My widowmaker, the left arterial artery, was 99% blocked. And 2 more months, if I would have had that heart attack, I would have been dead, because it would have been 100% blocked. I did get a I did get a stent. And Pat, I have to tell you, when you almost die, it changes your whole mindset on how you think about things. It was one of those things when the doctor told me I should have been dead. You don't know how you come back from something like that. The surgery went well with my wife, and my son, we think, was going to be doing fine. The bank was still calling in their note. So really nothing changed in my life, but I was able to be around to try to solve these problems. And when you come back from something like this, you have a new way of looking at everything, literally everything. I got out of the hospital actually a day early, and I called the American Heart Association, because at this time I was on TV. I was on PBS with my own TV show, and I was in Colorado. I was everywhere, and Frontier Airlines had all my shows on the back of their seats. Before it was common to have TV shows, you could watch my show. So in Colorado and a lot of other places, people knew who I was. And I did a lot in charity and everything like that. So I called American Heart Association, and it was after hours, and I left them this long message. And I said, I just survived a massive heart attack. I don't know what to do. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel. If there's anything I can do for you, I know I need to do something that makes my purpose in life now worth something, because I'm here for a reason. And I said more things than that. I guess the American Heart Association saved this message for over a year, then made me kind of one of their poster childs of heart attacks. And they wanted to have me and my wife with her baby bump and a picture of us so they could display it and show, photos of heart disease of different people it affects. And so we were going to have this beautiful photo shoot of me and my unborn son, my beautiful wife, and me having my hand on her stomach. But what happened, because of everything that went on with her being pregnant, the baby came a month early. It came the day before this photo shoot. And so I told them this, and they said, we still want to do the photo shoot. I go, my wife is in no way going to be able to get out of the hospital. It goes, is there any way could you take your new baby, and you and your new baby, we take that picture? And we did. That it's still difficult when I tell the story, even though it's 16 years later, because I almost lost everything. Wow. Sorry, Pat. This is embarrassing. Holding my unborn son, holding my son, knowing that my wife almost became a widow, my son almost became fatherless, my parents almost lost their only son. It was powerful. It was transcendent money. I could give a crap about losing everything because I could always do that again. But I almost left everything else important in this world. And because of that, I was high. This was 2 months after I had the heart attack. I was kind of high on life, didn't know what to really think. And I just realized that I was luckier than tens of thousands of people that have heart disease and die from a heart attack. And I came to life, back to life with a vengeance. I believed that if you're given a second chance, and most of us, Pat, are not given a second chance, I was going to make the most of it. I redid my gallery. I gutted my gallery, closed it down, even though we're in the recession and people said, Aaron, you have no money. Why are you spending money on a gallery that's dying? I said, if I rebuild it and I take time and care about it and give people the experience that they want when they buy art and they should receive, they're going to come back in droves. And I sold a ton of things. Matter of fact, the presidential collection that's behind me, I sold most of it to get the money that I needed to live and to renovate my gallery. I redid my book. At the time, it was called Collectibles 101. Few days after that heart attack, I had an epiphany that I was going to not force the book to be a certain way that it's not, but talk about my life. And my life was, at 9 years old, I had my first garage sale, and I bought and sold baseball cards and coins and toys and anything I could buy at a garage sale, estate sale, secondhand stores. And I flipped everything. And I got so good at it. By the time I was in my early 20s, I was worth $1 million. And then I stayed on that high and created my art gallery and did so well. That's why I was able to be on TV, 8 years on national PBS, and then eventually write for the Denver Post, my own column called The Garage Sale Millionaire. So the epiphany was to change the book to The Garage Sale Millionaire and write what I know. And that was how I did it and how people can simply learn about buying and selling items and making money for it as a side hustle. I did that. I rewrote the book completely, titled it The Garage Sale Millionaire, and it became a bestseller.
If you would, go back to your original story about how you got into the collectible market, because it's a great story.
It's the funny thing about that, Pat, was I loved toys, like any kid loves toys. And I wanted to have more toys. And I went to my parents and I said, Mom, Dad, I want to buy this new toy that's coming out. And they said, absolutely not. You're not playing with the toys that you already have. But we're willing to get you more toys, but we're going to teach you how to do it. And I go, okay, how's that? And go, well, you're going to collect all the things you don't play with. You're going to go through all your clothes that you do not wear. And we're going to go through everything that we don't use. We're going to put all these items on the front yard, tell our friends and neighbors, and it's called a yard sale or a garage sale. And people will come to our house and buy these items, and we'll give you all the money. And I go, wow, this really exists? And they go, yes. And so they taught me about doing signs and pricing items, and I was really amazed. And so we did it. In the first hour, my mother and my dad got bored. And so they left this 9-year-old in charge, and which was interesting. And so right before my dad left, he goes, son, I'm just going to go inside and I'll check in on you. And which meant to me, I'm not going to see him the rest of the afternoon. And I go, but Dad, what am I going to do? And he goes, son, don't worry about it. They're going to come on up. They're going to look around. You're going to ask them what they're looking for. You're going to say, okay, what are you willing to pay? And you're going to ask for a little more money. It's called negotiation. And then you're going to sell it. And I go, oh, okay. So let me get this right. Ask them what they're looking for, see what they're willing to pay, ask for a little bit more, and sell it and collect the money. Exactly, son. Very easy. And so I said, that's great. And then 2-3 hours later, I can't remember, my dad comes back on out, said, son, how did you do? And I show him all this money, hundreds of dollars. And my dad is flabbergasted because he basically said, I didn't know we had that much stuff out here to get this kind of money. And while we're bantering back and forth, we hear this guttural scream from my mother, screaming, oh my God, we got robbed. And my dad and I run on into the living room, and my dad's looking around, and my mom goes, oh my God, lamps, our end tables, chairs, it's all been stolen. My dad goes, oh my God, it got all stolen. And I go, you guys know it did. They go, well, what happened? I go, well, Mom, Dad told me when somebody comes on up, ask them what they want, see how much will pay for it, ask for a little bit more, collect the money and give it to them. Well, people were asking for lamps, end tables, chairs. And I knew exactly where to find it, and I showed it to them, and they took it. And so I sold it. To say the least, Pat, my dad slept on the couch for about 4 weeks, and that garage sale cost them probably around $2,500.
It's such a great story, though, in terms of how it really launched you into this. Now, the pictures behind you, what are they?
So you're looking, the one right behind me is a document signed by George Washington. And all around me is several documents or letters signed by all the presidents of the United States. I love the history that comes with the presidents. And so I'm kind of a history buff. And so I've collected every single president. And that's kind of my deal. That and the Civil War. It's these presidents, the Civil War, big changing events for our country. And it's kind of has shaped it the way it is right now. And so when I walk into my office, it humbles me of how many people had to do what they had to do to make this country great.
Now, is this the same collection you sold to finance the renovation of your art gallery?
Yes. So I sold lots of things, and then I had to buy different documents and letters. It's, you have to be prepared. You can't eat a document. You can't live on a piece of art. For me, it was always an investment. And what was more important is to take care of my family and to move everything forward. And, I can always get these things again, So I sold them. They weren't important enough for me to have to forego the amount of money I could get from them when I sold them and what I could do with it.
Going through a life changing bump in the road like you did with a heart attack really does change your perspective on what's important, doesn't it?
It does. I still, as you can tell, Pat, it still has effects on me 16 years later
Yeah.
because I could have left. My wife would have been destitute. I was $4 million in debt with no life insurance, and she had a new baby on the way, and she did help me in the gallery. We were a team on the gallery, so it it's the reason you can't tell it in my shirt, but you can see it on my watch. You can see it on my band. I have skulls. Every day I wear something or multiple items that have skulls on it. People think it's a fashion statement. For me, it's a reminder of that I could have been one lifeless a skeleton under 6 feet under, and I have to appreciate life and take every minute as it being my last minute and being precious and enjoy my family and enjoy my friends because you never know when your life will be over. And when that happens, it happens. There's no changes. And I was given a second chance in life. A second chance. It's pretty darn deep if you ask me that I can do things. I could finish items that I hadn't been finished. I could spend the last 9 months with my father because my father did end up passing that year. Was around for my son for 6 months. I was around to see my book to be successful. I had a literary agent read my book, send me back a letter saying that was 3 hours that he'd never get back. That's hardcore. And now I'm the one who's laughing because the Garage Sale Millionaire went on to win several awards and be a bestseller. And because of that book, I became very well known. It got me the column in the Denver Post, a weekly column called the Garage Sale Millionaire. It got me 1,000 interviews from radio to TV to being on the History Channel because of that book, because of the book that somebody said it was a waste of their time to review. And at the time, I have to agree with them because it wasn't called the Garage Sale Millionaire and it wasn't about that. But I needed some magnificent change in my life to make me wake up and see what was in front of me. And I made huge changes, Pat, huge, that if I didn't have the heart attack, I would have never made.
What are some of the changes you made?
First, I definitely changed the way I ate. I was overweight and I wasted time, even though I worked a lot. But if you think in your day, Pat, how much time you kind of waste in what you're doing.
Yeah.
Say you're working, but are you really working? And could that time be more valuable spent in another way? So I really looked at my time time management really changed. And it took me a while to realize spending more time with my family and friends, that was a process because when you get stuck into wasting time at work, when you're thinking you're working, but you could be doing it better and not spending time with your family and friends and not figuring out how you could carve out that time, then, I started to zero in on what I could do better for my family and for me. And that was the biggest thing. I have to tell you, I didn't waste money like I did.
Yeah.
I was pushing everything back into my business and I left nothing for a rainy day or AKA a recession. And so the way I spent money and saved money was a huge change.
16 years later, have you stuck with these initial aha moments of using your time better, taking care of your health? Or is that now incorporated into your everyday life?
Um, it is to a point. Pat, you sometimes forget. I don't can't tell you. I could wear skulls everywhere on my body, and I could be a witness to friends of mine passing away from heart attacks. And you need constant reminders. And you really, everybody I can say believes that tomorrow will always come. And I'm 59, and I have to tell you that I lose somebody that I know or I'm close with pretty much once a year. And mostly it is from heart disease.
Wow.
And so I lost somebody from cancer, but heart disease, and people are younger that I know are dying. And heart disease is the number one killer with men. And women, I think it's also the number one killer. Everybody thinks it's cancer, but heart disease is really, really a scary thing. And if people are not checking their cholesterol and watching what they eat, and seeing if it's in their family. My father died from heart disease, and my mother, one of the things that she died for later on was heart disease. We didn't even know she had. So I have to tell all your viewers that cholesterol, checking with your doctor on a regular basis. I had a little bit of a scare that I went back in and did all these scans of my head and my veins in my neck and the stress tests because some things didn't come out right. And that was on me. I did not see my cardiologist in a normal amount of time, and I got complacent. And with heart disease, you can't get complacent.
I think with health in general, you can't get complacent, and we all do. I know I made major changes in my life in terms of living a really healthy life, but the difficulty lies in integrating with the rest of the world. You want to go out with people, you want to, go out to dinner and do things, and what's on the menu may not suit what you ideally would like to put into your body.
I agree. And it's so, and it's the funny thing is like 5 seconds on your lips, a lifetime on your hips. When you're younger, that sounds just a stupid saying. But when you get older, you realize that cupcake or that big cheesy pizza tastes really good with that minute. But the next day you hop on the scale, or the next week of you doing it every night or every other night, it's not the best thing. It's not the best
No.
thing.
I went through 6 years of cancer treatments, and one of the real paradigm shifts for me was eating for nutrition. Learning to eat for nutrition, not for flavor or taste or anything else, although that's part of it. But I became very conscious of the fact that I had to get good quality nutrition into my body. That became my priority. And it really changes the way you look at food.
You have to look at food as fuel and as a life source. And if you look at that, I now have a nutritionist, and I look at everything. Pat, it's funny. I'm lucky enough that I'm semi-retired now, and everybody says, Aaron, but you're so busy. And yes, I do handle stuff, and I still like buying and selling collectibles, and I have a little bit of real estate. But I will tell you the number one thing, Pat, that takes up most of my time. You want to guess?
Health, taking care of your health.
Health/doctor's appointments. It is amazing. I'm seeing some kind of a doctor, PT, chiropractor once or twice a week. And that takes up, when you neglect your body for years because you're working and being that great parent, you put everything on hold. And then
Yep.
when you retire, you start to say, God, I'm overweight, or I don't feel right. And then you start to put all your emphasis on looking at that, when in reality, Pat, you should have been doing that in your 40s and 50s, and maybe even earlier in 30s, and figuring out how to stay healthy, not how to get back what you lost.
Absolutely. And we don't focus on that. We focus on busyness by and large, as opposed to really taking care of ourselves. With something like what you've been through, I think you gain a sense of urgency about life. What
Um,
what's on your urgent must-do list, knowing that we're not here forever?
you know, I have one child, Logan, and you know, the first 3 years of his life was a mad rush to try to keep me from going bankrupt, and on being around as much as I could. But I was the provider. My wonderful, beautiful wife was the person who she did work for. She did work and worked hard and took care of Logan, but we had a lot of problems. And I think the first 3 years that I kind of felt I missed out or don't remember well, I owe my priority is to owe my son Logan more time, and probably my wife too.
And what about your collectible business?
I do that now more for fun, Pat. I love going into secondhand stores or the Goodwill store and trying to find that treasure. My wife always gets mad at me. Aaron, we can't handle any more of your little collectibles. But I love to do it, to be that urban treasure hunter that makes the big discovery is exciting. And it's, back when I did it, Pat, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have
Yeah.
eBay. I was selling stuff, little ads in the back of the newspaper, or going to stores, collectible stores, and trying to sell those items. I Now it's so easy to make money and use have it as a great side hustle or a full-time gig. I people always ask, Aaron, how much could you make on a weekend? I've done it. I started with $250, even though I do have more money. I just wanted to test the water. And
Hmm.
I do this every now and then to see if I still have it. I can then buy stuff for $250, put it on eBay or flip it in other ways like Facebook Marketplace, and I can make $1,000. It's not that hard. And it's not a get rich quick scheme. You just got to take time and you got to get good at it. Keep on going to garage sales and estate sales and your favorite secondhand stores and become friends with the people that run those things and just keep on doing it and learn the tips that I teach in my book, How to Become the Garage Sale Millionaire, on how to sell on eBay and what to put on Facebook Marketplace or Nextdoor Marketplace. And it's fun. It's exciting. It gets your juices flowing. Especially, I wasn't a great athlete in high school, but if you want to get some competitiveness in your life, finding that one thing that nobody else could find and then turning it around and making money off of it, wow, that's a great feeling. You feel like a winner. And a lot of people need to feel like that these days. I don't think everybody feels good about who they are or what they've accomplished in life, but this is a way to make changes.
And where's your book? Is it on Amazon?
You can buy it on Amazon. You can go to my website, thegaragesale millionaire.com. And if you like to see what I'm selling and how I do it, the Garage Sale Millionaire on eBay, I have like 1,500 items. You can take my ideas of my photos and my descriptions and see what I'm buying and selling and mimic it. I'm all for that. And then I have a Facebook page if you like to get a hold of me on the Garage Sale Millionaire. Type in Garage Sale Millionaire. You'll be bound to find me everywhere, Pat.